Hey guys, I want to share my opinions on why INFJs and INFPs can be confused with each other. These are the two types that seem to be sister types, but actually we share no function, no same function whatsoever. So this is an example of the image I found on the internet, describing the INFJ and the INFP. But this is where people can get really confused because they use this really similar words like reserved, independent, composed, self-reliant, imaginative, um, sensitive, empathetic. All of these are like really similar words. And okay, I'm going to skip this and go to this sarcastic functions description, which is something that's really interesting, I think, because this kind of explanation sort of show like the worst selves or like the unconscious tendency of our functions. So if you read it carefully, you will tend to have, at least I feel like, oh yeah, this is me when I'm having a really bad day or something like that. Like this is like me on my less ideal moments. So maybe the previous image is more like on our best days we can be like that, but then this is like the the hard cold truth that our natural tendency can be like. Lastly, I have this list of questions based on an INFP I know, because in the beginning we do seem to have similar vibes, but then because we were put in a really high conflict situation, eventually we both show like our not so ideal selves, and that's when things can go really obvious that we are really different. Okay, so number one would be whether or not you like having open-ended discussions, because the INFP I know is someone who likes to do brainstorming, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they would make a conclusion or like make any action based on the discussion itself. So if you're comfortable with having a lot of open-ended discussions, then probably you lean towards more an INFP. Number two, do you feel apologetic inside when making your needs known that opposes with a popular opinion? This is sort of like an INFJ thing, because I feel like even though we can be really assertive, anybody can be assertive, but we do have the tendency to sort of like we prioritize more on the popular or the general opinion of something, and then we adapt to it. Number three would be, do you romanticize childhood or nostalgic events? How about theme parks, like, for example, Disneyland? How do you feel about that now that you're an adult? I feel like INFJs are true old souls, and they probably won't really enjoy time in the, amusement parks or theme parks like this. But then they could be enjoying it just for the sake of other people, or maybe their family, their kids. Because other people are enjoying it, they naturally feel happy themselves. But it's not something that I would naturally, be attracted to. I would even prefer to avoid that kind of stimulation. Number four is, do you curse around people once you feel comfortable with them? Do you prefer people close to you to be blunt? This is something that I can really relate to. I don't know if this is a type thing or not, but I feel like once I trust someone, I feel like I can be myself with them. I do curse a lot, which is kind of surprising, I guess, for people who don't know me in the beginning, because I may seem really like polite and then, sort of formal even, but then if I feel like I can trust you, then I would be really blunt and sarcastic, and I would curse a lot as well. Number five, do you tend to understand your feelings and emotions clearly? This is obviously an INFP trait, because I don't really understand my feeling. I think a lot of, portion of me growing up is me feeling confused why I feel what I feel, and it's really weird, like having this mood swing and not really experiencing anything that causes it. So if you do experience this, if you tend to understand your feelings and emotions clearly, you are most likely an INFP. Number six, do you prefer a method that is not restricted by rules and procedures? Again, this is not an INFJ thing. I feel like I do need some rules and procedures to really know what I'm achieving. But this INFP, I know they are really, they prefer to sort of like, do it freely, like based on how they prefer it to be. Number 7, do you tend to be indirect? Like, for example, can be confrontational in text but soften when in person. This is something really interesting trait that I found in this INFP because, I think this has something to do with the low TE maybe, because for me, even if I can be more nicer in person, but once I establish that this is something that needs to be done, then I would be consistent about that and not change my mind a lot about it. While the INFP may do things differently. Okay, and lastly, do you relate more to ENFJs or ENFPs' way of thinking and analyzing? This is really interesting because I did met an ENFJ, and we met for the first time. It was a double date because he was dating my friend, but upon the first meeting, already we are talking about deep stuff, and about religions, about politics, and on why people disagree with each other about all of those complicated and deep stuff that I don't normally talk about with anybody. So when I met this ENFJ, it did felt really nice, like, oh, this person knows, or I can talk about all of these things that I don't normally can with other people. So well, with an ENFP, I did have a close ENFP friend, but now she's like already across the world exploring her dreams, and apparently that's like a trend amongst ENFP, which is really interesting. So yeah, I was friends with an ENFP, but I don't really like, you would know which type you vibe more, as in they're like the extroverted version of you. So when you talk with them, you would totally understand that yeah, we have a similar way of thinking, analyzing, or even maybe decision-making process, but we may appear different, because this ENFJ I know, like I was just saying, he's a lot more casual, charismatic, even, like he can be more, more chill about all of these different opinions about, politics, religion, while I tend to be a lot more rigid with my opinions, and I would be like, no, that's the ultimate truth, and I don't know why people cannot see it, that kind of attitude. But then an ENFJ would be a lot more open-minded. So like I said, knowing your extroverted version would really help to understand yourself. So that's like sort of my 2 cents. If you agree or disagree, please let me know. I think it's important, or I think it's really valuable if we know our type. Of course, it's for our self-growth and for our